With me now is my Sky News colleague, Graham Richardson. Richo, great to see you. Lots to talk about. South Australian election coming on the weekend, which I know you're a part of our coverage of that. But let's start with the reduction in the beer tax. My colleague and yours, Andrew Clennell, reporting that that's going to be included in the budget, some sort of reduction. Then parallel to that, this debate around the fuel excise. What's your read on where the government's at and where they go to in the budget 2 weeks from now?
Well, where the government's at is big trouble. They're in very deep at the moment and they don't really know how to get out. And so what they're going to do is the traditional way that you handle things when you're in trouble, you're headed for election defeat. You try and spend your way to victory. And that's what they're going to do. They're going to throw goodies everywhere. So whether it's beer or petrol or anything else they can find, you will have them hurled at you now for the next few weeks. That's the only way they can survive. They're well behind. They've been well behind for a long time, and defeat is looming.
So we heard from the NRMA before the ad break, Peter Curry made the case that it doesn't make sense, the reduction in the fuel excise, because it pays for roads and infrastructure and all that sort of stuff, and because the fuel price, the oil price, is too volatile. That's one side of the argument. The other is you've got three Liberal premiers saying, please do it, please reduce the excise.
Well, you know, you can understand them all saying it. Were I a premier, I would too. Everyone is trying to win over voters at the moment, and so the temptation to do all these things is going to be pretty big. But the reality is, if you're being sensible, if you're operating on a proper economic model, you won't do it. You'll stick to your guns and you'll keep the prices where they are. On petrol, certainly. When it comes to beer, well, look, I've never seen an election won on cheaper beer. I've seen a few where they've tried. I mean, it makes us all feel good, but I don't think we go and vote because we get a couple of cents off a slab on the weekend. So, no, I don't think it'll work.
When you look at the news poll today, the number that jumped out at me was the fact that the preferred PM rating is now level. As you know, for most of our recent political history, that doesn't spell the end, but it doesn't, you know, it does spell trouble for a government when the opposition leader is either level or starts to exceed the incumbent on ratings like that, Richo.
Yeah, well, it mightn't be the end story, but I tell you what, it's a good pointer towards it. I don't know a better one. It's not often that you see opposition leaders equal with incumbents. It's pretty rare. And for Albo to get up there with Morrison at this point is, I think, spelling really the end of the Morrison government, because leadership is very important in these things, and Morrison has been a big leader for 5 years. But that lead has dissipated and is now gone. And once you're in that position, Kieran, it's very hard to get it back. It's not so hard for opposition leaders to win those points, but it's very hard for the person who's lost them to get them back. And that's Morrison's position. It's going to be very difficult to see a Liberal win. And I'm not saying that out of bias. I predict that Liberal wins. When I think they're going to win, I'll say it. But at this stage, if you've got a second mortgage, whack it onto Albo, because he's going to get there.
Okay, that's the interesting. Well, we had a confident call from you a couple of months out, but I guess just finally, Richo, how would you see the comparison between where the Prime Minister is at the moment in terms of trying to cling on to something that turns things around, to say a scenario when you think back to Julia Gillard at a time when her leadership was struggling and she, you know, had the real Julia and things like that, or going out to Rudy Hill. Nothing really landed, and it's obviously spelt the end for her in a different way, being rolled for Rudd. But it does seem a little like that at the moment. I'm not saying it's impossible for him to turn it around, but he's struggling to get any momentum or air on key issues.
You know, I remember back at the time of Julia Gillard and Wayne Swan, I was writing and saying all the time that they needed to do something big, not a gesture, but something really big, a big policy that would grab headlines, that would make people think again about voting Labor. They didn't do that. And Morrison is now in exactly the same position. To have any chance at all, he's got to come up with a huge promise. Now, that's going to make his budget look ridiculous. And so he's in a world of pain. He's in trouble if he does, he's in trouble if he doesn't. So I'll be fascinated to see which way he goes. But in the end, he'll opt to spend more. That's what they usually do. And we'll see what happens. But if, as I said, mate, if you've got the second mortgage, you whack it on elbow, you'll be pretty safe.
Richo, I look forward to seeing you on the weekend for the South Australian election. Appreciate it.
Yes, it'll be a good night.